we'll be fine. Oh, yeah, go on then. Yeah. Great. I always used to get excited when I was little. Well, I still do get excited when the person at the front has a bag, because there's an air of mystery about it. Actually, I don't know who on earth Julian Charles is, and I don't think that's my shopping, but I don't know where we've got this bag. You collect them now, don't you? Now they cost 5p. They're precious. And we come out of supermarkets, don't we, laden down with things because we don't want to pay 5p for a bag. So they're precious. But I thought this morning it'd be good just at the end to act out or to actually visualise a parable, or most of it. And you'll understand why I say most of it when we get to it. So I don't know, I could do with a few helpers. So have I got any helpers? Will you come and help me? You come and be my right-hand man and be my assistant. So if you're a right-hand man, you have to stand at this side, all right? I've forgotten your name. Reuben. Okay. Well, Reuben, I'm going to pass you one or two things and we'll see if people can guess what parable we're going to talk about. Okay, I'll give you those first. Any idea? Any idea? I asked Helen for a bit of kitchen roll and she came with all these serviettes. She brought 3 at first and she looked at my face and said, oh, it looks like they might not be enough. These aren't actually anything to do with it. They're just in case. It's always good to have things just in case. Okay, let's see. How about that? Do you know what that is? Well, it's like a basket plate, I think. It's possibly the best way of describing it. Anybody any idea what parable we might be going to look at? Not parable, what story, what account we might be looking at in the Bible, a miracle that Jesus worked? Oh, no ideas. Hold on. That will help in no way at all because it's just there as a tub. But how about if I hold those out? Have you any idea now, Reuben?
There's 6 of them.
Go on, yeah, you've got your hand up. Well done, feeding the 5,000. That's right. Do you want to come up here and help as well? Come on. You stick to them. Yeah, we're going to look at feeding the 5,000. And the other thing I was going to bring out was these John West Irish kipper fillets. Have you ever had any of them? No? Have you had any, Reuben? No? Would you like to try some? No? Well, that's what I got the serviettes for you to wipe your hands after. Well, we'll see how we go on. Okay. But we're going to look at, and it's called feeding the 5,000. It's a miracle that Jesus performed. I'll pop that on there. And it's the one, it's recorded in all 4 Gospels in the New Testament, is the feeding of the 5,000. So I thought for acting it out, we need a few helpers. Well, I've got a right-hand man and a left-hand man. What's your name? Lewis. So I've got Reuben and Lewis to help me. We could do with a big crowd. Where do you think we can find a crowd? This lot. Do you think they'll be any good at acting? No. No. But sometimes you've got to work with what you've got. Yeah. Okay, so this lot can be the crowd, can't they? So we need a crowd. And actually, I was thinking about this. Crowds of people. And I go into, occasionally when I go into Lancaster or Preston, we think there's a lot of people there. Bangkok Airport. It was heaving with people. And then in Malang in Indonesia, you take cars and the roads were full of cars. And if you go into Lancaster sometimes and a one-way system is chock-a-block, well then stick motorbikes there. Not in place of the cars, but alongside, in between, every gap. And, we see a lot of cars with just one person in the car. We see a lot of motorbikes and they have an awful lot more than one on. There was one motorbike I saw one day and there was 5 people on the motorbike. And somebody said to me that somebody had been stopped with a motorbike and the policeman had said, why are there 5 of you on the motorbike? And the man said, because I couldn't fit 6 on. But the crowds and crowds of people. And one of the things when we read these accounts in the gospel, and in one of the accounts, and I think it's in Matthew, and I think it's recorded in John as well, says Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw a great multitude coming towards him. It says in Matthew that he saw the multitudes and he was moved with compassion. And I can fully picture that. Because in Indonesia, in Asia, where we've been, we see multitudes. And yeah, maybe slightly different than here, because here, we choose what we want to be. A lot of people choose to have no interest in religion at all. But over there's multitudes who are all following false religions. And with me, it tugged at my heart, because there's people who have never heard who Jesus is. And going to the Delta region, going to that village that the girl shared about, people who have never heard who Jesus is. And it moves us with compassion, because they need to hear the gospel. So you guys are the crowd. We might bring others out of the crowd. Now we need, actually you're tired, okay? Just to get you in the scene. You're tired because you've been following Jesus all day. It's hot. Okay, it's hot over there, so the heat's in as well. And you're hungry. Okay, any of you hungry? How many of you skipped breakfast this morning because you're up late and rushed here? I'll not look at any of my family. We had biscuits on the way. Not because we were up late. Hasten to add, not because we were up late, but because there was a lot to do before we came. But also going to Esther's for lunch, so we're going to be okay. So if any of you are hungry, missed breakfast, go... No. Okay. So we need some disciples. What do you think, Lewis? Have you got any friends that you think might make good disciples? Yeah. Caleb. Who's Caleb? Where's Caleb? Come on, Caleb. Who else? Levi. They've got good names for disciples as well, haven't they? Yeah. Is there anybody else that you think might be good disciples? James, where's James? James! He was asleep at the back. Come on, James. Can you bring John, your brother, with you? Is he not here? Okay. Anybody else? We're probably okay with 5, aren't we? Yeah? Yeah? Though we're a bit exclusive, aren't we? We're all men. Do you think... Isabel, do you want to come? Yeah, you're going. Come on. Right, so we've got a crowd, we've got disciples. We could come on, William, good lad. We could do with somebody to be Jesus. Who do you think could make a good Jesus?
Me.
You? Do you want to be Jesus? You think you'd make a good Jesus? All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Lewis. If you stand up here, then you're a bit more tall, a bit more important, and you can be Jesus. All right. Okay. So, all these people have been following Jesus all day. They've been listening to what Jesus said. He'd been teaching them. But we also read that when they first came to Jesus, he had a lot of work to do, because there was a lot who were sick, who were ill, had diseases. And we read that Jesus healed them all. And he did amazing miracles. And all the people, they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go home. A bit like what you are when you're at school. You don't want to leave. You want to stay at school the whole time. Is that right? No, I bet you can't wait to get home, can you? I couldn't wait to get home. Sometimes I'd miss going to school because I loved home so much. Okay, we'll not go there. That's bad teaching. And so the disciples saw all this crowd, and actually, I think the disciples were getting ready for their tea. And they thought, wish this lot would go away so we can have a bit of peace and quiet and we can have some tea. So they were actually saying, and they said to Jesus, send them away. So send the crowd away so that they can go and get something to eat. All right? And then Jesus actually said to the disciples, he said, where can we go to buy food to feed everyone? He says, where can we go? Where should we buy bread so that all these people can eat? So, actually, one of the things, we put it in today's language, all right? We'd say, well, where's the nearest chippy? Do you know what a chippy is? Oh, fish and chip shop, you know what a chippy is. Or where's the nearest McDonald's, or where's the nearest KFC to go and get something to eat? Okay? And as the disciples looked at all the crowd, we haven't got a Philip, have we? Caleb? Do you want to be Philip? All right, because what Philip did, he said, we can't feed all this crowd. Even 200 denarii, which is a lot of money, and we'll come to that in a minute, they won't buy enough for anybody just to have one bite. Okay? Actually, a bit of research, 200 denarii was about 8 months' wages. So think of how much money your dad's earned in 8 months. All right? And if you were to send everybody to McDonald's for a classic McDonald's burger meal, because I know you'd want meals, £6.29. If you go large, Andy Thomas would go large, £6.69. The healthy ones, so the ladies amongst us, would go for a wrap. All right? And that would be £4.59. When you're a parent, you'll find out that KFC is better value than McDonald's. So bargain buckets, $10.99 for a 6-piece or $16.99 for 14 pieces. And that's good value. Okay, and if you add all that up, actually, you see, we read the story, the account, it's called the Feeding of the 5,000, but there were 5,000 men, plus women and children, and one of the commentators said there would be closer to 20,000 people there. So if you could get a good deal on McDonald's at £5 for a burger, that would be 20,000 times £5, which is £25,000. But to feed the women and children as well, you're looking at... Have I not worked that out right?
20 times 5.
Oh, I've got it in the wrong place, haven't I?
100,000.
Yeah. It's a lot, all right. I told you that sometimes I didn't go to school because I loved home so much. Right. What are they going to do? Okay, they haven't got the local supermarket. Where do you go when you want to get something to eat? To your mum? No? Aldi? Okay, well, actually, with all this going on, there was one of the disciples called Andrew. We haven't got an Andrew here, have we? We've got an Andrew. Andy Thomas, yeah. Well, see, he thought, what can we do? And he went, actually, and he found someone, and he said, there's a lad here. And what Andrew did was he brought someone to Jesus because he thought, right, what can we do? Well, we can't solve this problem, but I know Jesus can. And so he brought, where's William gone? He could be a lad. Do you want to be a lad? Tell you what, if you come and you carry this, William. Okay, Reuben, be Andrew for a minute. And just bring William. Bring William and his mum. It's always good to have a mum. Just bring them to Jesus. There. Right. And Andrew said, he said, there's a lad here and he has 5 loaves. Now, I just wonder, did he eat one of those loaves himself earlier in the day? Because everything comes in 6 when you go and get buns. But he said, there's a lad here, he has 5 loaves and 2 fish. But what are those among so many? You know, sometimes, I don't know whether you feel sometimes, well, I'm only little. What can I possibly do? Or sometimes we feel that ourselves, don't we? Well, there's nothing special about me. And there wasn't really anything special about this little boy, except he was introduced to Jesus and he gave everything that he had to Jesus. And one of the things we were sharing with the students is the work of an evangelist, the work of a witness is to invite somebody, to introduce somebody to Jesus. And Jesus, basically Andrew brought this little boy, introduced him to Jesus, and this little boy gave Jesus all that he had. And that would be, you know, a young boy growing up, hungry, because he'd been with the crowd all day. It actually would be quite a sacrifice giving Jesus the 5 loaves and the 2 fish that he gave. So he gave them to Jesus. And Jesus performed an amazing miracle. I'll tell you what you want to do. If you just open that bag and take those pieces of bread out, and I don't know whether I'm qualified to do this. Let's open these fish and see what's in here. Do I just tip them in, Sue? Right. Oh, it smells like fish now. I'm probably going to be the one that's going to need these serviettes. Does it smell fishy? Yeah. Anybody fancy a bit?
No.
Isabel, do you fancy a bit? No. Jesus, do you fancy a bit? No, none of them want him. Do you not get in there? Big strong lad like you, go on. Oh, tell you what. Best thing when you can't get in anything is ask your mum. Just go and ask. Go and ask Catherine. Just open that and stick them on there. 5 loaves and 2 fish, and that was all that this little boy brought. But he brought everything, and he gave everything to Jesus. Now, what we need the crowd to do. Have we got in? Yeah, we need to get them out, stick them on there. Presentation is everything. And stick 1 in your pocket, because there's only meant to be 5. Or stick it up your jumper. Anyway, what, pop them in there. I wash my hands before I've just got fish on them. So there, right. Here, I told you presentation's everything. Have you stuck it in your up your jumper? I say it's behind him. I know it's disappeared. Right. There. Now then, do you think there's enough to feed everybody here?
No.
No. Well, he gave it to Jesus. So put your other bun down that you're pinching for your bagging later. Stand up, Jesus. Hold them there. All right. Now, everybody's got to stand up. So if you all could just stand up, please. They've all got to stand up. Now, this is where your authority comes in. Because you say to Andrew and the disciples, tell the people to sit down.
Tell the people to sit down.
Now, if you all shout, sit down.
Yeah.
Go on, try it.
Sit down.
You could always say please, because it's good to... All right. All the people sat down, and then Jesus took this, and, you know, there's not a lot there, is there? Anybody fancy trying the fish? No, no one. There's a lot of people... But that's all there was. And then Jesus did something amazing, because it says he took the bread, so I want you to take hold of that. Just stand up on there, Lewis, and then you're a bit higher. Right? And it says that he gave thanks. Do you say grace before you have dinner? Yeah, before you have a meal. Does anybody want to say grace now? Yeah, go on, real quick one.
Thank you, God, for our food, amen.
Thank you, God, for our food, amen. Brilliant. And Jesus actually, it says he gave thanks. He thanked God for what they had. And then it says he broke the bread. So do you want to break it? Break the bun in 2. Rip it in 2. That's it. And it says then that he gave to his disciples. And this is the bit I can't do, okay. And they began to take it and to give it out. And it says that it multiplied and the people were fed. Now what I want you to do, yeah, Reuben, because you were the first one to come and help me. Just want you to walk up and down. And if people want a bit of fish and a bit of bread, they can have some. Or they can just see what the loaves, the buns are actually bigger than you would have had. But they can just see what it was. You follow with that in case anybody does want any fish. All right. I bet Andy Thomas will have some. Okay, so just have a little wander and let them see what there was. But you know, the people immediately sat down. When these guys said, sit down, the people sat down. And I wonder why that was. Well, it was because the people were expectant. They had seen and heard what Jesus had been saying and seen what he'd done. And so when Jesus said, tell the people to sit down, they sat down because they expected God to work a miracle. They expected something amazing to happen. And I wonder if we lose our expectancy of God to step into a situation and do something. We sort of end up using God as the 4th emergency service or the last resort, rather than going to him straight away with the problem, a situation we face, and saying, Lord, yeah, I don't know how to handle this situation. It's far too big for me, but the first thing I want to do is place it into your hands. Will you give me the wisdom and direction to know what to do and how to deal with it? And I have to hold my hand up because often I will try and work things out and I'll try and work it out myself. And then I'll say to Sue, this isn't working. And she'll say, have you prayed about it? I think, no, that should have been my first port of call. That we take everything to God in prayer. God, how can we possibly feed all these people? Esther's probably done it. How can I possibly feed all the Marslins at lunchtime? You know, but expecting. We've got a great God. We've got a massive God. But how often we put him in that little box and we think, oh, I can't possibly do that. When we should be looking and seeing what God is going to do. You're doing well. You've got a hungry bunch, haven't you? How many have eaten the fish? No. Go on, James. I'm expecting you to sell it on this earth on the way back. But the people, they were expecting to receive from God. Expecting to receive from Jesus. You know, how often do we expect to receive from Jesus? He's got another bum behind his back, so we'll still get to expect, can't we? There might be something else that might be more exciting in a moment. Don't, what are you doing peeping in my back? Just sit quiet. And it says that they went, it was given out, and I wonder, when did it begin to multiply? Have you ever thought of that? We read about the account of the feeding of the 5,000, and it says that Jesus said, make the people sat down. Jesus took the loaves. When he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples to those sitting down, likewise of the fish, and they ate as much as they wanted. In each of the Gospels, it says that they were filled, that they were satisfied. I wonder when it began to multiply. I wonder whether it was when the little boy gave his lunch to Jesus. I don't think it was. I wonder if it was when Jesus took it and broke it and gave thanks. I don't think it was. I wonder if it was when he passed it to the disciples. I don't think it was. But I think it was when the disciples turned and took what Jesus had given them and began to go and take it out to the people. And often God asks for that step of obedience from us. He often asks for us to take that first step. Lord, yeah, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense, but I believe that you're going to come through. And I'm going to take that step. And then God says, great, now I will bless that obedience. Now I will begin to work. And I believe we see that so often. And it doesn't tell us when it multiplied. But that would be where I would feel that it multiplied. As the disciples turned, this doesn't make sense, and I'm going to look so stupid, but I'm going to do it because Jesus has told me. And it began to multiply. And everyone was satisfied. There wasn't anybody who was complaining and saying, well, I wanted cheese on my bread. There wasn't anybody who was looking for anything more. Everyone had eaten their fill. They were all satisfied. And they were so full and satisfied that there was even more to collect up at the end than they'd had at the beginning. They went round and they brought, she'll eat the fish, Chloe will have the fish. They brought 12 baskets of leftovers. And that again tells me that with God there's nothing wasted. You know, you might feel, well, I'm nothing. But with God, nothing is wasted because of his abundance. Everyone is satisfied. And when we come to God, God blesses us. And he blesses us abundantly. And I've yet to find anyone who says, oh, I regret the day I became a Christian. I regret the day I came to Jesus. I've not yet found that person. I found a lot of people who have said, I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd become a Christian sooner. Well, you've done well there. And we haven't got 12 baskets. We've got less than we started with. But remember in the story of feeding of the 5,000, they came back, there was more than they started with. You've still got your bun behind your back. I know you have. And you've got a mouthful of bread. You're not going to have any room for the chocolates that I brought. I mean, for what I've got in well done. Okay. Brilliant, guys. If you just want to sit down, if you just want to go and sit back down. Who's on cleaning this week? Sorry. There's crumbs all over. Do you two want? Just go and sit back down. There's still fish left for those of you who are too shy to try it on the way around. But yeah, a parable that, not a parable, I keep calling it a parable, an account that we read in all four of the Gospels. And just as we close, I'll read it, just read it through together. Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw a great multitude coming towards him. He said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" But this he said to test him, for Jesus knew what he would do. Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one may have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?" And Jesus said, "Make the people sit down. There was much grass in that place. The men sat down in number about 5,000. Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those sitting down. Likewise of the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were filled, he said to the disciples, "Gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is lost." Therefore they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which were left over by those who had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the sign that Jesus did, said, "This is truly the prophet who is to come into the world." So remember, we might not think we've much. We might not think we're much. But when we place all that we have and ourselves into the hands of Jesus, he can use us to reach and to bless many. Going to Asia, you stand there in that crowd of people and think, what effect can we have on those people? But when we place our lives into his hands, he can use us to reach many and to share the gospel with many. That as Jesus performed that amazing miracle, the people expected, do we expect God to do things in our lives? Do we commit everything to him in prayer? Are we satisfied with all that God gives us? The amazing gifts of forgiveness, of love, of peace, of joy that he longs to pour into our lives. Mick Jagger sang that song, "I can't get no satisfaction." Well, he never would, because he wasn't looking in the right place. But when we look to Jesus, we receive the greatest satisfaction, because we receive life, and life in all its fullness. We don't need to look anywhere else. Everywhere else is empty. That Jesus longs to satisfy and to bless us abundantly. We're going to sing as we close a song, "Take My Life."